years, and uh, you know, anyway, hopefully no one will care. They're more interested in you than they are in the background of my
Yeah.
my part. Are we ready? Are
Yeah,
we
go ahead
ready?
and go live. I'm not going to do the 30-second this time, so
Okay,
just go ahead
great.
and go live.
Here we are with the second part of our interview with Judge Gale Adams, a candidate for the North Carolina Court of Appeals. And Judge Adams, when we last talked before technical difficulties, you were flying off of the Nimitz, or as part of your naval JAG experience, and getting ready to go back uh, to Fayetteville, or to go to Fayetteville to practice law. Um, and so tell us how you left your time as a Navy JAG officer and went back to Fayetteville, and then what?
Yes, and then I practiced for 2 months with my husband and got an offer with the DA's office. And so I went there, and I was there for about 4 years. Of course, that involves, prosecuting defendants charged with felonies, misdemeanors. I did a lot of drug prosecutions. I was the child abuse prosecutor as part of my duties. I did other cases too, breaking and entering. I mean, anything you can think about, larceny, robbery, but I was the child abuse prosecutor for a while. And after I left the DA's office, then I started working as an assistant federal public defender. And as an assistant federal public defender, the Eastern District of North Carolina travels more than any other district in the United States. We have a very wide territory to cover. So I was on the road all the time. Not to mention that the courts are held in different areas: New Bern, Greenville, Elizabeth City, Raleigh, Wilmington. So you're not only traveling to court, but you're also traveling to meet with your clients who are being housed in different areas, to include out of state. Um, the Marshal Service uses jails in Virginia. And so a lot of traveling involved as an assistant federal public defender.
So did you find the transition from the DA's office and prosecuting individuals to the public defender's office representing defendants as a difficult transition, or had your Navy experience prepared you for it?
My Navy experience prepared me for it, but you still have to change your way of looking at a case, and that does take some time. As a defense attorney, you're looking at everything that sort of is, there are issues in the case. And as a prosecutor, when you're transitioning from, I found it more difficult to transition from being a prosecutor back to being a defense attorney, because as a prosecutor, I'm still looking at all the evidence against this individual. And
Right.
so now you've got to try to look at it a different way and look at, some of the things that weren't done that should have been done in a case. So it does require a different perspective, a different thought process as you are assessing and analyzing and reviewing cases. So yes, there is a different, like I said, way of thinking and looking at things when you're transitioning from one to the other. At least that was the case for me. It may not be the case for others, but I found it that was the case for me.
Now, I would think that would be a bit of a challenge to make that transition
Yes.
easily. So, had you thought about becoming a judge during this time period?
No, had not really considered becoming a judge. I was just plugging along, doing what I was doing. And then the judge in Cumberland County had indicated that he was going to retire. And so that's when I started looking at and considering a position as a judge.
And that's the Superior Court judge, or
Superior
resident Superior
judge,
Court judge.
yes, I was never a district court judge.
Yeah,
Yes, as
right.
a Superior Court judge.
And so, how did that come about that you found yourself wearing a black robe and assuming another role in the justice system?
The good thing about having practiced on both sides of the courtroom, when cases come before me as a judge, I am able to look at facts and circumstances from a more of a global position, because I can look at it from the defense perspective and I can look at it from the prosecutor's perspective. Having worked with victims and law enforcement as a prosecutor, I understand their perspective, and having represented defendants, I understand their perspective. And so that's helpful. What was new to me more so was the civil part of being the practicing,
Right.
looking at civil cases. That was different. I enjoy the civil law because it was something new, and I liked something new and challenging, and so I enjoyed that, the civil part of being a judge. But there was a transition there as well.
Yeah.
And so you're handling all kinds of civil matters, from medical malpractice to car accidents, contract law. So just a lot of different civil matters that I had not previously been exposed to, but you have to learn and just adjust and transition.
Yeah, I should point out for our listeners, the Superior Court trial bench is the sort of the senior trial level position in North Carolina that handles major felonies in the criminal side of the work, and major litigation, um, obviously on the civil side, very different from what our district court judges do. So now, how many years have you served as a Superior Court judge?
I have been a Superior Court judge. I'm now in my second 8-year term, and I'm in the second year of my 8-year term. So
So
that's
10 years, 10 years essentially.
essentially, yes.
Yeah. So what prompted you to decide you're going to embark on a statewide campaign for a seat on the North Carolina Court of Appeals?
I know. What was I thinking?
Yeah.
That has been a challenge. So when I ran for the Superior Court bench, both times I was unopposed. And so this whole notion of campaigning and raising money and all kinds of candidates forums, that's all new to me. But it's been interesting. I did not know. I tell people, I said, I have a newfound respect for people who throw their hat in the ring to run for public office.
Right.
Not realize that behind the scenes there's a lot that goes into campaigning, and so it's been a learning experience. One of the things that I have enjoyed tremendously as I have campaigned is meeting people across the state. That has just been that is the positive and the pros of running a campaign. But yes, I decided to throw my hat in the ring and run, campaigning for the first time, and a statewide race. So you can imagine how the transition there. But I decided to run for the Court of Appeals because I felt like my experience, especially my diverse legal experience on both sides of the courtroom, as well as a Superior Court judge, was something that would bring a not a new perspective, but would be a needed perspective on the Court of Appeals. Because as a Superior Court judge, we are a trial court.
Right.
And so cases that are appealed out of the Superior Court and even out of the district court, and they go to the Court of Appeals, the judges who sit on the Court of Appeals, I think it's helpful to understand what was happening in that courtroom as you are reviewing cases and making decisions about about your ruling in a particular case. What was happening on the ground? I call it boots on the ground for trial court. What was
Right.
happening in that courtroom. And so I believe that perspective as a Court of Appeals judge is needed. And so when you're one of the three, and you're the voice in the room with the other two colleagues on the bench who are deciding a case, like I said, I believe that perspective from a trial court level is very helpful.
So I think it's important to point out that while attempting to run a statewide campaign, you have also had to maintain your responsibilities holding court all over Eastern North Carolina as a Superior Court judge.
Oh, yes. Own challenges. Since I've been running, I had a 5-week death penalty trial. So of course that demanded a lot of attention. I've held court in Charlotte. I was there for a couple of weeks because the trial carried over. I was in Durham, I think last week or week before last. So yes, you continue to hold your day job and try to do that, well and effectively, so that no one can even tell that you're campaigning. So,
Yeah.
so you want to make sure that no one suffers as a result of, your second job. I like to call it my second job because that's demanding too.
For sure. Well, since this is primarily being broadcast to folks here in Western North Carolina, and your Superior Court judgeship is down east, have you been able to get up to the western part of the state and to God's country, as I call
Well, it depends upon where God's country starts.
it?
I have held court in Union County and I've held court in Mecklenburg County. So
Well,
I
you
don't
haven't gotten west yet, Judge Adams.
God's country yet. Okay, all right. Well, no, I have not held court in God's country then.
But have you campaigned up? Have you been able to campaign those some up in the western part of the state?
Oh, absolutely. I have been to Buncombe County several times. I am actually scheduled in my campaign to be in Yancey County and Polk County this weekend. So yes, I travel to the west. Yes, absolutely.
Well, now tell me where you're going to be in Yancey County, because I'm going to be up there in about 30 hours. So,
Oh
yeah.
yeah. So there's a event I have the I don't know the address right offhand, but there's in Burnsville.
Right, right.
So I'll be there on Saturday around 2:00. And then I'll leave that event. That's from 2 to 4. And then I'll leave that event and travel to Polk County, and their event starts at 4:30. So I'll be splitting my time between the two.
All right. Well, that's not a short ride from Yancey County down to Polk County, but it's a pretty ride, if you're, particularly if you're not on I-26 dealing with construction. But hopefully, I will see you in Yancey County. I'll see if I can make a point to come in for that. And you do need to mention when you're up there that you're friends with Judge Tom Wilson. We were just talking about that. Judge Wilson's my nephew, but Big Tom Wilson was the legendary bear hunter from Yancey County who found Dr. Elisha Mitchell's body when he fell over the falls back in 1856.
Oh my goodness.
And as you know, Mount Mitchell, which is in Yancey County, is the highest mountain east of the Mississippi River. And Big Tom Wilson, one of my neighbors up there. I'm a voting resident of Yancey County. So,
okay. Did not realize that. Yes.
Yeah. Now, Judge Tom Wilson, candidly, is not a relation, but it'd be fun to mention him up there. We'll at least know who you're talking about.
So when I hit Yancey and Polk County, is that God's country?
Yes. Yeah. Polk County's foothills, but you can see God's country from Polk County, but when you hit Yancey County, you are in God's country.
I'm in God's country. Okay. All right.
Okay. So just a couple more things about your campaign, and we'll wrap up here. Any particular issue or set of principles that you think you'd like to articulate to listeners about what you would do as a judge on the Court of Appeals?
Well, one of the things that I definitely want to emphasize is that as a Court of Appeals judge and as judges, we have to follow the law wherever that leads and apply the law to the facts as they exist. And we have to apply the law not as we want it to be, but as it is. And so from my perspective, that means that politics, partisan ideology has no place in the courtroom. I also, and I strongly believe that we should not be deciding cases based upon our own personal beliefs. We should be deciding cases based upon the law. And I think that we owe that to the public because that's who we work for. And I also think that judges should be fair and impartial. The same principle, decide cases fairly and impartially based upon what is before us. I also think that because there has been so much partisan politics injected into the judicial branch from my perspective. That unfortunately, I think that erodes public confidence in the ability of the judiciary to be fair and impartial. And we have to regain their confidence that they can trust us, that when a case comes before us, we are simply following the law, the legal precedent, the statutes, the Constitution. I mean, the case law that exists, we are simply following the law and we are being fair and impartial. Judges have to be independent. They have to be objective. Again, we have to make sure that the public's confidence in us does not erode and they can trust us to do what it is that they've elected us to do.
So, where would listeners go to get more information or to make a donation or register their support for you?
They can visit my website at judgegaleadams.com, and Gale is spelled Gale. There's 3 spellings. I always have to spell it so that people aren't plugging in, Gail or Gayle, but it's Gale. So Judge Gale Adams, and that's Adams with an S and 1 D.
Yeah. All right, judgegaleadams.com. And what do we have? 3 weeks to go, something like that.
Yes, countdown.
Yeah. That's always, by this time in a campaign, I was always already exhausted and running on fumes. So
what it's like then.
Yeah. Well, look, it's been a great pleasure talking with you. It's Judge Gale Adams, candidate for the North Carolina Court of Appeals, our intermediate appellate court in the state, and she'll be in Yancey County and Polk County this coming weekend. And if you're in the area and want to meet Judge Adams personally, come on out. I think it's going to be a good weather and the leaves will be great. You picked a good time to campaign in the West, Judge Adams.
Yes, wonderful.
All right. Well, thanks so much for taking time to talk with us, and we look forward to seeing you out on the trail.
All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Thank you.